So the next segment of the program is to learn more about HAF. So Sheetal, Rishi, and Sita, who are here on behalf of HAF, will give a few presentations. But before they come up, I just wanted to introduce them for those of you in the audience who aren't familiar. Winner of the India House Houston's Young Leader of the Year Award in 2013 and the Hindus of Greater Houston Akhil Chopra Memorial Award in 2014, Rishi Buttada needs no introduction in this audience. He's on the board of HAF and is the Vice President of Finance at Star Pipe Products. Rishi holds an MBA from Rice and a BS in Economics from Wharton at University of Pennsylvania. Rishi's efforts focus on textbook reform and Hindu political awareness, as well as his strategic planning for the foundation. In addition to Rishi, who's based here in Houston, we're also fortunate this evening to have two HAF staff members who have traveled from the East Coast just for this event. Sheetal Shah is HAF's Senior Director based in New York. She is HAF's longest serving full-time staff member, having joined in 2007. Sheetal wears a number of different hats, from CFOs to CTO to co-COO. You'll have to ask her what all those stand for. Sheetal is a dedicated practitioner of Ashtanga Yoga and was instrumental in formulating the foundation's Take Back Yoga campaign. Sheetal holds a master's degree from the London School of Economics and a bachelor's in computer science from Georgia Tech. Sheeta Iyer is the director of philanthropic partnerships based in Philadelphia. Sita joined HAF last year, but previously has over 20 years of broad experience in community outreach, where she's directed nationally ranked hospital operations and development. Sita holds a bachelor's in accounting and MBA from Case Western University. Sita's been instrumental in helping HAF grow its major giving program and nationwide outreach. In addition to all the work she does for HAF, Sita is also an opera singer and also a classical Indian music singer during her spare time. So if Sita, Sheetal, and Rishi can come up and give the audience some background on HAF, that would be great.
Apologies, I'm not a Windows person, so I'm not sure how to use this machine. All right, namaste. Thank you all for joining us this evening. It's a pleasure for me to be back in Houston. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces, and it's wonderful to see so many new faces. To those of you who are familiar with HAF, who have been our longtime supporters, I know there are many of you in the crowd, I first would like to say thank you. Thank you for supporting us, and thank you for making us the organization that we are today. To those of you who are new, who are learning about the Hindu American Foundation for the first time, I hope that between myself, Sita, and Rishi, we can convince you that we are a vital organization for the Hindu American community, and we hope that we will earn your support not just today, but for many years to come. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So first, take a look at the images that you see on the screen. Just take a moment to look at the images that are associated with the four major faith traditions of this world. These images were taken from a public school social studies textbook. At the top, look at the images for Christianity. We see two beautiful mural paintings depicting the faith. Next to it, we see images for Islam. We see a number of the faithful praying, and we see a young student studying the Quran. On the bottom, we see yet another beautiful mural associated with Judaism, next to an inset picture of what looks like a family sitting down for a Passover dinner. Now take a look at the images that are associated with Hinduism. We see what seems like a beggar woman surrounded by trash, and the inset is a picture of an elderly gentleman who we are told is a Brahmin. Again, these are the images associated with four faith traditions that were in a social studies textbook. Do these images look like they are fair representations of four faith traditions? No. For the three Abrahamic faiths, we see images that are uplifting, that are beautiful, that make you want to learn more about the traditions. For Hinduism, we are associated with poverty, and oppression. Is this what we want not only Hindu American children, but all American public school children to think that Hinduism is all about? No. Let's move from our school textbooks to the media. Check out what the New York Times had to say about Hindus. Open defecation has long been an issue in India. Some ancient Hindu texts advise people to relieve themselves far from home. Yes, this was actually an article that was in the New York Times. They took a quote from a single ancient Hindu text and have now created a perception about Hindus and Hinduism. Let's check out what the BBC had to say just 3 months ago. Most Hindu conservatives believe that a woman whose husband has died should no longer live because she failed to retain his soul. So why am I sharing these rather depressing examples with you on this Sunday evening? Because our public schools and our media are the two largest institutions that shape public perception. They shape the perception of our neighbors. They shape the perception of our peers, our coworkers, our teachers, our students' friends. This is what shapes the perception of us and of our tradition and what we believe in. And perceptions matter. They have a huge impact on all of us, and they have an even larger impact on Hindu American youth. In fact, the Hindu American Foundation launched a bullying survey, and what we learned was staggering. As one middle school student said, "I was at lunch, and it was after we learned about Hinduism. They started saying my religion is a devil's religion, and that I'll go to hell." Earlier this year, we launched a survey on the bullying of Hindu American students, and we published a report. Some of the staggering statistics that we found: one in 3 Hindu American students reported being bullied just because they were Hindu. 1 in 4 of our respondents were singled out when the class was learning about Hinduism. And the one that I found particularly horrific was that 1 in 8 Hindu American students said that their teacher actually made sarcastic remarks about Hinduism while teaching the section. All of this stems back to perception. It stems back to what is written about Hinduism in our textbooks, in the media, and the public at large. And as a 6th, 7th, 8th grader, all you want to do is fit in. Who wants to be associated with a religion that is associated with poverty, caste, oppression? So, why are we here? How did we get here? Yes, 70 years ago, the birthplace of Hinduism, India, was colonized, and a lot of information that was spread about Hinduism was written from a Euro-colonial mindset. It was written with ideas of their own personal economic growth, their own colonial aims, and obviously missionary aims. But like I said, this was almost 70 years ago. So why is it that today, in 2016, we are still fighting these misperceptions about our traditions? There are a couple of reasons. There's a void. Our community has a void. We have done a phenomenal job filling our internal needs. We have local temples, we have local community organizations, we have Bal Vihars that are serving our spiritual needs, that are serving our internal needs as a Hindu community. But what about our external needs? What about how our community is presented to others, the society that we live in? A lot of people don't know about Hinduism, obviously. The bodies that are shaping these perceptions, the bodies that are making these policies that are affecting us, school boards, editorial boards, advisory councils, think tanks, interfaith councils, the Hindu American presence is not visible in these boards. And that's one of the reasons why we face this problem. So where do we go from there? We have an organization called the Hindu American Foundation that is attempting to fill this void. Our goal today, and has been for the past 13 years, is to change the narrative around Hinduism and work with institutions and individuals who are shaping policies and perceptions that are affecting our community. We started 13 years ago at a kitchen table in Philadelphia, and from there we've come a very long way. We started as a purely volunteer organization. Today we're an organization with 9 full-time staff members, office in Washington, D.C. We have a 6-person board of directors, and Rishi Buttada is our Houston board member. We have a National Leadership Council, which is a group of committed volunteers that are spearheading HAF projects, as well as they're individuals that we use as a sounding board for when we want ideas, when we want to throw things around. And finally, we have our chapters. We have 6 national chapters, one of them being here in Houston, and they are really the grassroots efforts of HAF. Those of us who kind of work at the national level sometimes don't get the opportunity to come and meet with our members and potential members, but our chapters are really what holds us together. And over the past 13 years, we've had a lot of success. We have been referred to as the preeminent voice for the Hindu American community by a very distinguished professor at Harvard. And how did we get there? Through our professionalized advocacy efforts. And yes, advocacy is a rather vague term. It's not as concrete as building a temple or feeding the poor, but I'm hoping that by the end of this evening's presentation, you'll have a much better idea of what it means to say advocacy. And at HAF, we believe it's 3-pronged. First, it's educating the public about Hinduism. Second, it's speaking out about issues that are affecting our community. And third, it's about building those bridges with individuals and institutions who are shaping these perceptions about us and who are making these policies that are impacting us. And over the course of time, we've worked our way up where we've had the opportunity to work with some pretty impressive organizations and individuals. Just this past year, we had the opportunity to work with National Geographic and Morgan Freeman. He created a mini-series called The Story of God. Morgan Freeman actually flew over to India, spent some time to learn about Hinduism. HAF served as a content reviewer for the Hinduism section of the series. We serve as a Hinduism resource for Oprah and her O magazine. And very recently, we had the opportunity to pre-screen a Oscar-nominated Disney Pixar film. Many of you may have seen it, Sanjay's Superheroes. So you were thinking, great, this is awesome. You hang out with Morgan Freeman, but what are you doing for me? So, understandable. So I want to just give you a very tangible, real-life scenario that happened just last week, actually. A member of ours who lives in Queens called me up. Her name is Sheetal, and so I'm not speaking about myself in the third person all of a sudden. Sheetal lives in a predominantly Jewish building in Queens. It's a co-op building. And like most buildings in New York, the building celebrates Hanukkah, they celebrate Christmas, they have decorations, people decorate their doors for Thanksgiving, the whole works. So Sheetal, being a very proud Hindu, she decorated her door for Diwali and has done so for the past 5 years that she's lived in this building. She's never had any issues until now. A neighbor complained. They saw her door hanging, which said, Happy Diwali 2016, and had a swastika on it. The neighbor complained to the building, and they said, this is pro-Nazi, I'm offended, and she needs to take this down, otherwise I'm going to call the police. So the neighbor didn't approach Sheetal herself, the neighbor approached the building. So 2 building staff members went to Sheetal and said, you need to take your decorations down. So Sheetal said no. And she reached out to the co-op board. She said, first, why don't you put me in touch with the tenant? I'd be happy to educate them a little bit about the Hindu meaning of the swastika. And as a side note and a plug for HAF, very timely, we had actually just published a piece on BuzzFeed called 10 Things You Should Know About the Swastika. We anticipated there was going to be some issues right around Diwali, Halloween, with the usage of swastika. So Sheetal, being a member, knew about this, and she was like, I'd be happy to provide her with some information. Building refused to give the tenants information out. Instead, the co-op management simply sent Sheetal an emailed PDF version of the co-op building rules and highlighted the page that said, tenants may not hang anything on their doors. So, at this point, Sheetal was frustrated because, as I mentioned, so many tenants in her building had so many things hanging on their doors. So she picked up the phone and she called me. She was like, help. What? She was like, my religious rights are being infringed upon. She said that she has 2 young daughters and she did not want them to grow up being ashamed of being Hindu. So she called and she said, can HAF help me out? I said, sure, no problem. In the span of a couple of hours, myself and our executive director, Suhag Shukla, worked together to write a letter. We researched the Fair Housing Act, which clearly demonstrated that what this co-op board was doing was in clear violation of Sheetal's religious rights. We drafted a letter. We had it signed from Suhag as our legal counsel, so we got a little legal action going there. And we sent that off on a Friday afternoon. Sheetal had been desperately trying to contact the co-op board to no avail. Lo and behold, on Monday morning, Suhag received a notice saying, thank you for your letter. Your client, Sheetal Shah, or she's not a Shah anymore, sorry. your client, Sheetal, is free to display her Diwali sign. So, needless to say, there's still a little bit of quibbling here and there. There's a little bit more effort that went into it than I'm relaying really the short version of the story. But my point that I'm trying to make is that HAF is an organization for you. Sheetal's story is not unique. It could happen to anyone here in New York, anywhere in this country. And when that happens, you need an organization that you can turn to. You need an organization that's going to stand up for you when your freedom to express your religious right is being trampled upon. And I hope that for all of you, HAF will be that organization.